Hi, Shani here. Today's video is about something that has been really rising up for me recently, and I'm wondering if it's been rising up for you too. So I just wanted to create this video to address it. Someone came to me recently and asked me a question. It was a really simple question, but it was a question that really got me thinking and digging deep. And the question was, how do you want to show up in your life? So I want to ask you the same question. How do you want to show up to your life? How do you want to show up to yourself? How do you want to show up to your relationships, to your friendships, to your career? How do you show up to your health? How do you show up to your spirituality? How do you show up to your mind? How do you show up in this world? Sounds like such a simple question, right? But it really got me thinking. And I was thinking that in order to fully show up to this world, in order to really fully show up to everything that I do every single day, to show up to myself, to show up to my career, to show up to my friendships and to my loved ones, to my parents, to my brother, to the society around me, to show up to the work that I know I'm meant to be doing, I really need to show up fully and authentically and be unapologetically me. So do you find that even though you might be showing up every day, you're not really fully showing up? You're not fully showing up as yourself, unapologetically, authentically, completely 100% you, no bars hold. You walk up into a situation, into the world every day, and you're like, this is me. I'm fully showing up. I'm interested to know. I'm pretty sure that most people are not fully showing up authentically and completely and honestly in everything that they do. So in order to really show up, we must address this part of ourselves that we've kind of suppressed or put to the side somehow. And this is the concept that I really want to talk to you about today. And it's this idea of our shadow or our shadow self. So you know when you were a kid and you were in the school playground or you were outside and you were so excited because when the sun was shining down there was this long figure, this shadow that was kind of seemed to be attached to you on the ground. And the more you tried to chase it or stand on it or move on it, the more it moved with you, right? Because the shadow or our shadow self is part of us. It's part of who we are. It doesn't matter if we move that way. The shadow will just move with us. It doesn't matter if we try and stamp on it or tread on it or change the direction of it. It's not going anywhere. It's part of us. It's our shadow. It belongs to us. So what exactly is this shadow part of ourselves? To me, the shadow is the part of ourselves that we've suppressed. We've put it away. It's the part of ourselves that we understood made us appear to be bad, or made us appear to be not good enough, or made us appear to be too loud, or showing up too fully in the world. We were too much for people. And so we suppressed it. We put it down. We changed who we were in order that we would come across as good, that we would come across as liked, that we would come across as pleasant and sweet, and not any of the other things that we might have been. So in order to try and integrate this shadow part of ourselves again, we first of all have to understand what it is and where it's being triggered. And then we have to find ways to integrate it back into ourselves and start to love it again, start to nurture it again, start to accept it back as part of ourselves, so that instead of trying to move and see the shadow moving with us, and instead of trying to jump and tread and stamp on the shadow, we invite the shadow part of ourselves back into who we are and transmute it and integrate it and accept it with love. So how do we know when our shadow self is being triggered? Well, I want to share a story with you. So recently, I've just been feeling so triggered and so judged by so many things. I I'm going to share quite a personal story with you because perhaps it's something that you can identify with too. So one of the demons that I've been battling with for all of my life is this feeling of money fear. Okay, of never living in a fully abundant mindset, of never fully believing that I quite have enough money, even though it's not really true. I've always worked, I've always had a wage, I've always been able to support myself, but somehow I always felt like I didn't have enough. And I never really fully understood it. And when I saw other people being stingy, whether it was that they weren't giving a waiter enough money for a tip, or whether they were unwilling to invest in themselves for something, or whether they were unwilling to give to charity on the street, when they stand there with the charity boxes and they weren't willing to put like a couple of pennies or a pound or however much it was into the charity box, I always felt like really triggered by that. And I judged them for it. And I didn't understand why it triggered me so badly. I was like, why? Why is it that people, what are they, stingy? Can't they just put like 50p in the box for somebody else who needs their help more than them? And I really, really judged them for it. It happened loads when I was traveling. Especially in Southeast Asia, where obviously people earn a lot less money than Westerners. And all these Westerners would haggle and haggle and haggle for prices for rooms in guest houses. And I would just get so annoyed by it. And I'd say, okay, I'll pay for it. I'll pay the extra. Because I knew that they needed the money more than me. And yet, I know I've lived with this money fear all my life. Like having the money, but believing that I don't have the money. So I couldn't understand the connection between the two. I didn't understand the connection between the two. And the more that I saw people being how I perceive to be stingy with their money, and that's my judgment, right? That's not just an observation, because the observation is they didn't put the money in the box or they didn't tip the waiter. That's the observation. But my judgment of the situation is that they were being stingy. They weren't being generous. And I didn't make the connection that was part of my shadow, and I couldn't understand why they were triggering me. And it's been so prominent in my life recently with people surrounding me projecting their money fears and their money stories onto me, that my shadow self, the one that fears money or fears spending money or fears I don't have enough money, has been super triggered. And it's happened a lot recently with one specific person in my life. And every time they mention or project their money fear onto me, I find myself getting really defensive and really rebellious about it. And I find myself getting super triggered by it and sometimes extremely emotional and upset about it. And so I started to dig into it when someone said to me, how do you want to show up in your life? And I thought, well, of course I want to show up authentically. I want to show up fully. I want to show up unapologetically as me. And I thought, wow, I'm judging all these other people. But obviously it's something that's really triggered inside of me. It's something that I'm judging within myself. It's something that I suppressed down. I suppressed it in myself so that I didn't have to think about it. And now that it's being shown to me like a mirror reflection right there in my face, it's starting to trigger me. So today I did an exercise with myself where I really spoke to my inner child. And this is something that you can do to try and address the shadow that you've been suppressing or hiding for so long. I really spoke to my inner child about it. I said, little Shani, what is it that you really want? What is it that you really want? And she answered me and she said, I want security. I want safety. And I'm sure so many of you can identify with that. I want security. I want safety. Little Shani, what is it that you feel when someone else talks about their money fears to you? I feel insecure. I feel unsafe. So little Shani, what is it that you want to do about that? How can you talk about it? How can you address it? How can you accept that shadow part of yourself? And you keep asking the questions. You can keep asking your questions to your inner child to find out what it is that you have suppressed and put aside and put it into the darkness of your shadow, and ask it what it needs, and give it support and give it courage and give it love. So how do we know if our shadow is being triggered? How are we aware of our shadow? It usually happens when we are judging somebody else. It's usually triggered when we find ourselves judging somebody else. And when we find that happening, there are some questions that we can ask ourselves. Question 1. What is it about that person that is triggering something in me? What is it about them? Is it that they are too loud? Is it that they are unapologetically open? Is it that they are too shy and you were always told you were too loud? Whatever it is, ask yourself the question, what is it about that person that is triggering something in me? And then you can ask another question. What is it about that person that is reflecting back something that is already inside of me? So I want to share another story about that. When I was younger, I was a chatterbox. I used to love to use my voice. I used to go to drama classes. I became a drama teacher. I used to love to use my voice. But in all of my school reports at school, I always got comments about how wonderful I was and how, diligent I was in the classroom, but I would learn better if I stopped talking so much. And then this conversation would come up so many times. Friends would tell me, "Oh, you're such a chatterbox." Adults will tell me, "Don't you ever stop talking? You're a little chatterbox, aren't you?" My boyfriends would tell me, "God, you love to talk, don't you? Do you ever stop talking? Can't you just be quiet?" And these stories started to form inside of me. And so the kind of loud and vivacious and confident talkative Shani was suppressed. I suppressed it down and I stopped talking, literally. And my throat chakra really closed up. My throat, the chakra here, right here in my throat, it really closed up. And I found myself in situations where I literally was unable to talk, when my voice was taken away from me by somebody else, or where somebody stepped in and said things for me, or where I was really unable to authentically say the things that were really on my mind and state my needs and state my desires and state my wants. I really, really, really struggled with that for years because people had told me that I was too loud, I was too talkative, I was a chatterbox, I would do better if I stopped talking so much. And so my subconscious said, "Okay, Shani, well, in order to fit in and in order for people to like you, you need to stop talking so much. You need to be quiet. You need to stop being loud. You need to stop doing drama. No one wants to hear you. No one cares about how you express yourself." And so I suppressed that and it became a part of my shadow. And it played out in so many different areas of my life, in my relationships, in my friendships, in my career. Many, many times I found myself wanting to say something or wanting to have a voice and either having it taken away from me or literally being unable to get the words out of my mouth because my throat chakra was so blocked. And it was only when I started to address that shadow, when I realized that I was being triggered by other people who were able to expressively and authentically use their voice to say what they wanted. It was only when I started to see other people talking with clarity and being able to state their needs and express themselves so clearly and authentically that I started to get triggered. I was like, what is this? Why do they bother me so much? Why is this person really bothering me? At first I thought maybe it was jealousy. Maybe I'm jealous of the way that they do it. And perhaps I was. Perhaps there was some jealousy there. But really, it was because they were reflecting back to me a part of myself, my shadow, that I had disowned. I had put it to the side. I had suppressed it in order to feel like I could fit in, that I could belong, that people would like me, that I would please people by being this way. And when I suppressed that, I also suppressed a part of myself, a part of my authenticity. So how could I ever fully show up the way I wanted to? How could I be unapologetic? How could I be authentic? How could I use my voice? So one of the ways that we can really address this shadow work is through inner child work, as I mentioned earlier. And another way we can really address shadow work is through the power of conscious connected breathing. Through my breath work, I work with my clients on the inner child, and I also work on helping them to release those shadows, to identify where they are being triggered, where it's being reflected back at them. And it's usually by someone that's very close to us, or I don't mean physically close, but emotionally close to us, that is our mirror reflection, and they are just reflecting back to us, either a part of us that we put away, our shadow, or a part of us in ourselves that we don't like the story I told you about my judgment of people who are ungenerous, or how I judge them to be miserly, when really maybe that was a judgment I had about myself and my attitude towards money too. So one of the ways we can do that is through conscious connected breathing, and through the power of the breath we can come back to ourselves, we can go inside, we can connect to our inner child, and we can nurture it and love it and tell it that it's supported, and tell it that it's loved, and tell it that it's safe, and that it's okay to be you, and it's okay to be authentic, and it's okay to be unapologetically 100% you when you show up in the world. If you are interested in doing breathwork sessions with me, either online or face-to-face, please contact me. I will be more than happy to talk you through the process, and we can work online or face-to-face in our one-to-one breathwork sessions, and it is a transformative journey that can help you to address these shadows, make you aware of these shadows, and help you to release all the things that you've been suppressing, and to get you just fully showing up in this world, because you deserve to be unapologetically you in everything that you do. And when you show up fully as yourself, authentically, unapologetically, no bars hold, 100% you are doing yourself a service, and you are doing a service to the world, because the world needs you as you are. So from my heart to yours, I hope this was a helpful video about the shadow. If you have any questions, or you want to share with me things that have been triggering you or that you've become aware of, please send me a message, put a comment. You can contact me on my Instagram, and please click and subscribe so that I can share more videos with you. Wishing you a beautiful day from my heart to yours.